Shabbat Shalom, Ambazonia. Good morning, fellow Ambazonians. Today, na Saturday, number 17 day for the month of September 2022. My name na Capo Daniel, the Deputy Defense Chief and the spokesman of the Ambazonian Governing Council, aka Sense Pass King, una own countryman. Una welcome to our daily podcast, a program where they bring una meaningful information, the truth, fact-based analysis for help we as we waka for this journey to our freedom, the independence of Ambazonia. Good citizens of Ambazonia, we start today with messages of the French government appointing a 4-star general to our colonial master in La République du Cameroon to be the next France ambassador to La République du Cameroon. The 4-star general, General Charles de Carsabec, is slated to be appointed to take up the duty as the French ambassador to La République du Cameroon. But first, with one echo for Ambazonia, recent development as La République du Cameroon did posture Ambazonian war with a propaganda machine to project an Ambazonian defeat despite the defeat of La République du Cameroon to the international community and to represent and define Ambazonia as a force or a liberation movement that is drifted from its original purposes and have become a problem to its citizens. These have been echoed by Cameroon propaganda report and campaign through international organizations that have come up with report after report citing Ambazonians and their liberation movement, a liberation movement that is against the education and fundamental rights of her own children. This is far from being the truth, as we know that the Ambazonian Governing Council have authorized over 280 new schools to be added to the list of Ambazonian community schools that have been opened through our national territory this year. We will continue to face challenges in this road to project Ambazonia in a manner that will attract the necessary international support for our liberation movement. Misguided forces have continued to undermine this effort at great risk to our liberation movement, especially as the United Nations enters the General Assembly, with Biya eyeing for a spot to represent Cameroon, appeal to the United Nations and to her international partners, calling on them to support their so-called Grand National Dialogue and demand for aid to fight a war against Ambazonia. Whether President Biya, the Mad King of the Republic of Cameroon, will succeed in his campaign is another history. If Ambazonia needs any help, we have had all the intelligence presented to us free of charge by La République du Cameroon's their own lapdog, Yaounde. They have told Ambazonia that La République du Cameroon counts less, value less their disponible militias, their Bulu Beti machines, and their mercenaries. The Cameroon government do not consider the loss of its military personnel as anything that measures its success in Ambazonia, as much as he values the representation of its states by its administrations and its economic gain in its exploit of our resources and our people. La République du Cameroon also puts propaganda in its narrative over reality on the ground. For the Cameroon government, it doesn't matter the reality on the ground so long as they are able and capable to paint the reality they want the international community to see. This poses a great challenge to the Ambazonian people and our liberation movement to fight, defend, and push forth the proper definition and projection of our liberation struggle. It is up to us to define what we are fighting for and what we stand for. As Biya declares the end of international diplomacy to resolve the war with Ambazonia, on their part, human rights experts in the European Union, Marcel Lot, have called for the consideration of sanctions and a new approach towards Cameroon as they abandon effort for peace negotiations in favor of military confrontation with the Ambazonian forces. Over the years, several international organizations with state backings have showed interest to help push for a negotiated solutions. It has been stalled by the Swiss HD. Now that the Swiss HD have been put aside and Cameroon embarked on a serious and heavy international campaign to define and redefine and rewrite the history of Ambazonian liberations, Ambazonians must opt their diplomatic game and push forth their own narrative and rejuvenate gunboat diplomacy aimed at countering not just Cameroon efforts to redefine the Ambazonian liberation war, but also to be able to attract the necessary international support and sympathy to our plight for self-determination. The Cameroon government and its intelligence wing have been very smart and successful to fight Ambazonian projection, to fight Ambazonian narratives and its ability to define the issues of the day. Even more important, La République du Cameroon have been very successful to use Ambazonians, buy them off with corruptions to enable them to allow it to continue its exploit in Ambazonia. The CDC deals will be remembered as the biggest blow for the past 2 years in our liberation quest. It is in this light, ladies and gentlemen, that I want to celebrate and echo the success of one ADF General Ebube, who have passed into glory. General Ebube, who controlled the Ambazonian Defense Forces Special Unit in the great state of Bui, have been crucial in the past 3 years to hold the ground and stop Cameroon exploitation in our tea plantations in Du and its ability to operate and export goods to La République du Cameroon international market. General Ebube for years have been resisting bribery and corruptions, with Cameroon's government and her partner Babanda Mpolo providing bribes after bribes, intimidation after intimidation, and even approaching neighboring sister camps who had received money. At one point, General Ebube had to launch an attack and money was recovered to the tune of 30 million, which was paid to a sister forces close by to help to bring down the camp of General Ebube, which was standing in between the way of Cameroon exploitation of our tea plantation and the freedom of Ambazonia. That fight was successful. General Ebube ended up being killed by Cameroon government using infiltrators that comes and works within the palace. Money was paid, huge sum of money was paid to the palace that reigns in Ebube's area. The Cameroon government did everything it could to bring down General Ebube. For over 3 years, we resisted bribery and corruption and stopped the production and functioning of the tea estate of Babanda Mpolo, running it for La République du Cameroon. One would have been easily fooled, like many Ambazonians have been fooled, that he could have collected money from the tea estate, used those money to buy guns, and be allowed to have some sacrificial intelligence for La République du Cameroon and become popular to be General Ebube, with so many guns and so many fighters that would have projected themselves as fighting La République du Cameroon, while at the same time doing everything possible to maintain the functioning of the tea estate. That is what would have happened, and that is what is happening in many parts of Ambazonia, with Ambazonian soldiers who are under Cameroon payroll, under Cameroon advisory and handlers. Their main function is not to fight against the Cameroon economic interests in Ambazonia, to stop the exploitation of our people and our resources. Their main and sole purpose is to fight against the forces that stands on Cameroon's way to exploit both our natural resources and our human resources. They know Ambazonians are gullible as we measure success in terms of noise and actions against Cameroon military. Yes, of course, actions against Cameroon military, we must and should carry it to its maximum impact. But we know very well that war is being fought not just by guns and the killing of military personnel, but by the narrative and the ability of the enemy to have the incentive and the will to continue to fight. The Cameroon government, their success will continue to be to turn Ambazonians inward so that their main drive and their main motivation to carry out activities should be as a result of challenging each other, fighting each other, while giving them space to continue exploiting our territory and our resources. We have seen the same thing happening with Brassaris, with Ambazonian soldiers being offered new deal, constant bribery for protection money for Brassaris to continue to exploit our territory and provide financial benefits to the Bulu Beti regimes and their cliques who are the shareholders of the Brassaris du Cameroon. Soldiers who have been bribed, they go out there to carry out actions, not to project Ambazonia, but to secure their positions and the interests of Cameroon, which they are there to guarantee. Ambazonians should be wise, and our forces should be deployed with precision and priority for the sole purpose for effective elimination of La République du Cameroon will to fight, an incentive to continue maintaining their exploitation and presence in Ambazonia. We are indeed in a crossroad that have presented itself by Cameroon transition of power. Biya is closing up his chapter, preparing the ground for transition. The French government have sent its general, who used to be the attaché of its military legion in Gabon. The same general have paraded military hardware at the border with Cameroon in several occasions to demonstrate the will and power of the French government to intervene in Yaounde's affair, if need be, removing troops and assets from Gabon. The new French general have good relationship and is behind the training of many top Cameroon's generals and military commanders. His presence in Yaounde will be a big boost for French interests and influence over La République du Cameroon's policies. They have had their best of their best. Everything is set in Yaounde for the transition of power away from Biya to his son to create a new political dynasty of the vampires, maintaining the Bulu Beti clique as the other scavengers in the north, the Fulanis, seek also power. We hope a perfect scenario with a mounting opposition to the transition of power in the colonial capital will give Ambazonia the best opportunity to sever itself. But would Ambazonia miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity? That question is for you and for me. For the meantime, priority is the key to any better management. If there is one thing for Ambazonians to remind themselves of, is that manners do no longer come from heaven. Success are made. Actions and activity should be geared towards a political goal, and those goals will be defined by those who can define them. If you cannot define them, your enemy will write your story. May the war be short and may victory quickens for Ambazonia. God bless you. Capo Daniel, signing off.